And we're back to Saga Online Press. The words are coming. We present the sessions. I present the sessions. It is character creation this time around. This is video 2 of 4. Um, Worked out a lot of the kinks for the programs I'm using to bring this video to you. Um, I think it'll run smoothly over time. Hopefully, you saw some sort of commercial of some sort, and you don't mind that commercial being there. And if people look at these videos and listen to my blog posts and read my comics and all that good stuff, maybe, just maybe, I can make enough money to buy new equipment and make these videos better. But enough pandering. Okay, so we were talking about the breakdown and the beauty of Photoshop and how all that works. This is still the breakdown phase. And you see I use a lot of various shapes. I don't use a ton of photo reference for things like posture and stances. Reading so many comic books over the years and reading the comics being the only art teacher I had for so long, that I tend to have a lot of stock poses already in the bag. What I usually use photo reference for has a lot to do with clothing. Mostly clothing, especially traditional clothing, jackets, the way a suit sits on someone's body based on their physical stature. Basically, drapery is what I use photo reference for, and posing and figure drawing is usually from the top of my head, which is good and bad, because the good part is it's easy to just get the work in. The bad part is you have to constantly remember to challenge yourself to try new poses and stop going into the same, reach for the same iron in the golf bag. When I learned in school, that really helped with that is you see a lot of cylinders and cubes, and that helps in terms of perspective, but it also kind of helps me see how a fist or wrist and forearm will all look at a certain angle. And then I can also, as I lay down this drawing of his right arm, I can imagine that arm moving and where everything would be as I moved it. So one thing I want to point out, and again, this is not a tutorial, this is not a how-to video, this is more of a behind-the-scenes commentary for how one guy draws his comics. And nothing I tell you that I do is something I believe you should do, except for learn to kill a man with one punch. I think everyone should learn that, and then we don't need guns anymore, because we will all be afraid to anger anyone, because one punch will kill you, and you will just be like everyone's cool all the time because no one wants to get punched so hard that they die. But anyway, other than that, don't listen to anything I say. As you can see, I skip certain steps. If this was a tutorial, I'd be a horrible teacher, because there are aspects of the work that I just automatically know to do that I no longer do physically. They're all done upstairs in the mind, basically. So this entire midsection, his abs and stuff, is like skipping ahead in a tutorial video. And part of what affords me the ability to do that skipping and jumping ahead is Photoshop. If I was drawing on a piece of paper where one mistake could cost me untold amounts of time trying to fix it, then you have to take your time and go step by step. But with Photoshop, there's no point of no return. And that's really the benefit of digital artwork. That, and I feel like I'm doing the planet a favor every time I work, because I don't, one, spend a ton of money on art supplies anymore, and two, don't kill my fair share of trees buying art pads. I don't get a chance to draw for the sake of drawing as much, but that's because my computer has to be plugged in all the time. That's the one drawback from my tablet, is the battery is pretty much dead, and so I have to have it plugged in. So that means I can't just whip it out in public in front of an old lady and start playing with it. I can't. I have to plug it in someplace and whip it out in front of some kids and start playing with it. Yeah, that's what kind of video we're doing. That's yeah, you take that. Listen to the Blurry King podcast. It's gonna be stuff like that with a lot more colorful language, some f bombs. Since we're on YouTube, I don't want to put any cursing on here because it's YouTube and it's artwork and it's not that big a deal. But if you're an adult and you want to listen to an adult talk about pop cultural stuff, I'm a former pop cultural writer, so I'm technically somewhat of a knowledgeable person on those subjects. We're gonna do all that stuff on our podcast. It happens about 2 or 3 times a week, and you can check that out on sagaonlinepress.squarespace.com. Soon it'll just be .com once I pay Squarespace a bunch of money to get my domain all to myself. But until then, it's .squarespace.com. As you see as I'm talking, I'm using my favorite shapes for cylinders. When it was shown to me to draw figures in that fashion, it was one of those duh moments where I hit myself on the floor like I could have been doing this for years. Now I'm paying this guy who's really cool $6,000 to state the obvious, you know. But the part of it, that's the teaching part of it, is the understanding the shapes. Like when you draw in basic shapes, like you see me drawing these little sort of bent rectangular cubish things, and the circles for the knees, and the cylinders for the shins. I'm pausing here in the work, and I think I had a problem with my power cord coming unplugged. So bear with me while in the video I'm addressing technical issues, and on the commentary, which is after the fact. I'm not drawing right now. I'm just looking at the video myself. I've already edited the video for time best I could, but I wanted to leave some of the mistakes in there so you get that sense of the raw behind the scenes. This is what the workflow looks like. That's another reason I'm doing all the talking, so that when the video does have this kind of an issue where I'm doing something that doesn't look like I'm doing anything because I'm so zoomed in with the camera that you're not sitting there like in silence looking at your YouTube screen wondering if there's something wrong with your computer. It's not. If you can hear my voice, my melodious, velvety, you think I might be a black guy, but you're not quite sure voice, then everything's working fine. Oh, here we go. Okay, so the other leg is coming in, and I'm telling you now, my Photoshop does not look like this. It's just the program I'm using to record the session. It's kind of cool in a way. It's a kind of found awesome, which is going to be a big part of what I discuss, and I think the next video is going to show it. But anyway, basic shapes help you kind of get a sense of where your character is in space. In the future, you're going to see me work on actual comic book pages. I basically hit the internet and looked up all the dimensions I needed for comic books. I have a novel I published in 2011 called The Lineage of Dirge, and in researching publication, I learned about borders and sizes and all that stuff. So when you see the webcomics, and there's one live on sagaonlinepress.squarespace.com, the Atomic issue 1 is there. I would suggest reading the motion comic first, which is also there, so you get the stories. The first arc is called At What Cost, and that's a whole different thing. But real quick, this is the opacity. Okay, when I first started using Photoshop to draw my the sketches for comic books, I used different colors to represent the layers, and I found that was sort of a pain in the butt. And I thought about it logically. If I was using a pencil and paper, what would I really want to be able to do to work with the various stages of my drawing? And my answer is always just make it really light. So now, instead of putting in a purple, a red, a green, and a blue, I just do a layer and then reduce the opacity and draw over it. And so now you can see the actual face beginning to take shape. In the first video, I mentioned that there are mistakes abound all over the drawing. And I don't mean mistakes in the final sense. I mean mistakes along the way. Mistakes that if I was working in pencil, I would have to stop and erase. But because I'm not working in pencil and I can erase anything anytime I want, I don't erase at all, even still. Because that mistake on the paper is a signpost for where the correct whatever it is needs to go. It's a barometer now. It's kind of like putting a marker or a buoy on the battlefield for where landmines might be. So now I know that that's not supposed to be there, but something's there to give me a signpost to where I really need to be. So you'll see me leave things there that don't look quite right. And then later on in the final drawing, well, for this drawing, you're going to see some of those corrections being made because I'm trying to illustrate like how I illustrate. Again, please leave comments if you see me doing something I could be doing better or differently. I would love to have that conversation with artists and people who are aspiring artists, people who teach classes. Please dialogue with me about what you're seeing here. This is not designed to teach you how to do something. It's just sharing how I do something. And if it's helpful to you, that's great. If you can help me, you think you want to share your position, that's even better. So yeah, right now this is conceptual stuff. This is the first time I've put this character into existence. So up until this moment, he's only existed in my imagination, how I think he might look. And the funny thing about that, and what's frustrating about being an artist, is as a child wanting to draw and being a creator of characters and stories first without being an artist, it was so frustrating to not be able to put what I saw in my mind on the paper. I mean, oh my gosh, like my development as an artist was so much the late bloomers development, where when I was 18, I drew like a 7-year-old might draw at 18, because in high school I didn't go. I was this bullied, dorky, overweight, lame kid, and me and my buddies did school every day, and I took print shop and journalism, and I loved to draw, but I was horrible at it, and most of the kids who did draw didn't associate with me very much, and I was a terrible artist, so I had a teacher who would tell me to stop. Your art sucks. He was a print shop teacher. He told me, your art sucks. You're never going to make it with that. You should just find something better to do. And he would just dog me. And then, actually, Tyra Banks' stepfather was my art teacher in high school, who was named Mr. Johnson. And he was actually really, really cool. But he taught a traditional art class and it didn't work on illustration. And so it was like project art. And so he helped me a little, but he didn't really have the time or the material to really help me chase down exactly what I wanted to chase down. But I wish I could check and see how that guy's doing. It's been a long time since I talked to Mr. Johnson, but he was probably my first big art influence as a child. And yeah, that was Tyra Banks, the supermodel's stepfather. Pretty cool. We're nearing the end of the video, so I'm going to try and not be in the middle of a major conversation point before I run out of time. I got about 2 minutes left of this video. As you see, I'm trying to kind of illustrate where I want certain pieces of technology to go. Again, one of the bonuses, and I believe me, I honestly believe that using Photoshop to draw elevated my skills as an artist only because it took away a great deal of the fear and trepidation of art. As an artist, you don't want to draw bad art. You don't want to suck, ever. You don't want to draw something that doesn't look good. And with Photoshop, I can constantly improve without destroying my paper. So there's the bicep on his right arm. That's a nightmare if I'm drawing in pencil, because that's way too dark to erase and the paper not be a mess. So I don't get to see that. I don't get to see the development on those terms with a pencil and paper. And at the end, when I'm all said and done, it's as clean as I want or need it to be. I mean, that's kind of the reality of drawing on paper and pencil. But with Photoshop, I can just not care. That's probably like the best way to describe how I approach the art at this point. Like at this point in the story. And because I'm a writer, and as a writer I have to deal with editors, and if you're a writer who deals with editors, you know that you have to not care a great deal about what you're doing, because if you fall in love with your work, you and your editor are going to have a bad time. So it's kind of like that with drawing too. But with Photoshop, I don't have to worry about that. Like I just don't care about any of the stuff I'm drawing now. I can abandon any idea I have at this point. I can just not quit drawing, but just erase something and just do something different because it just I can. There's no point where I can't stop and go back and make alterations. We're nearing the end of the video, and so you're gonna see us in the next video. The session 3 is going to show more development of the character, a little darker lines, a little more face development, and see you then.